Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. At my birthday party, my husband embraced his first love, the girl he had admired in his youth. He gently stroked her belly and asked me, "What should we do, dear?" "She's pregnant." Not a single person at the table spoke up for me. I stood up and said, "Congratulations." Congratulations to him for getting what he wanted, and congratulations to myself. I had long grown tired of loving him. It had been an hour since the birthday banquet started. The dishes had gone cold, and even the waiter had asked several times if the cake was ready. I sat at the head of the table, staring blankly at the chat history between Jasper and me. It was still on the last message I sent that morning. "Can you make it to my birthday?" My parents sat to my right, their faces sulky, showing anger. Jasper's mother sat to my left, still beaming with a smile. "Hune's almost here. I just called him, and he said he's on his way." He hadn't shown up for almost half a month. 2 months ago, it was he who told me that Emily had returned to the country. He sent me a photo of her walking out of the airport. She's still as captivating as ever. Time has truly treated her well. The familiarity in his eyes and the double entendre in his words made me feel a chill in my palms. He had never been at peace with marrying me. Suddenly, the door was pushed open forcefully, and Jasper walked in holding Emily. My dad stood up with a whoosh, his eyes wide with disbelief. My mom tightly clutched his arm, but even without her grip, he wouldn't have moved. My dad stammered, "Shingai, this is Jasper." He smiled, pulled out a chair near the door for Emily, and sat down beside her, his hand draped over the back of her chair. "Dad, didn't Sienna mention it? I had a girl I liked back in the day." My heart felt like it had been punched hard, making it hard to breathe. Jasper's mother had a cold expression. "There's a time and place for this. Today is Sienna's birthday." Jasper's smile widened, his hand resting on Emily's belly. "Isn't everyone here now? Let's make things clear." His gaze turned to me. "She's pregnant. What do you think, dear?" Emily had been red-faced and silent since entering. The hands I hid under the table were already bleeding from digging into my skin, yet my face remained neutral, neither happy nor sad. Jasper leaned back lazily against his chair, staring at me. "You know what to do, right?" My dad sat back down in despair, unable to say a word. Everyone at the table was looking at me, waiting for my reaction. Not a single one spoke up for me. I couldn't help but lower my head and smile. "Congratulations." Jasper glanced at the cold dishes on the table, frowned, and snapped his fingers to call the waiter. "Add some light dishes and get a clay pot porridge." He shot a glance at Emily. "She's having morning sickness. I have to worry about what she eats." The smile on his lips and the tenderness in his eyes felt like a hot iron burning me. Emily looked somewhat uneasy, frowning at the food Jasper brought to her. Jasper's mother remained silent for a long time before finally speaking. "Standing up, Shingai, you come out for a moment." Jasper dropped his smile and threw down his chopsticks. "If there's something to say, let's say it here." He looked around and his gaze lingered on me. I felt like a thorn was stuck in my back, and the hand I had resting on the table instinctively tightened on my thigh. "Mom, are you worried that Sienna will make things difficult for me? Surely it's not that serious." My parents remained silent, only looking at me with a bit of pity. I knew Jasper had waited too long for this day, waiting for me to give him back his freedom. In our 5 years of marriage, he had shown his disdain for me too many times. I quickly lowered my head, afraid he would see the tears welling up. "Don't worry, I can sign at any time." Jasper's mother suggested celebrating my birthday, perhaps hoping to mend our marriage, but little did she know it would only add fuel to the fire. Jasper's mother sighed and reached out to pat my back. "Sienna, don't be impulsive." But that hand couldn't soothe my sadness and embarrassment. Jasper, however, was so eager that he pulled out the divorce agreement and placed it in front of me. He grabbed one of my hands and shoved a pin into it, but his movement froze. The skin on my hand was red and swollen with faint traces of blood. He furrowed his brow and avoided my gaze. "Sign it." That sentence was so quiet that only he and I could hear it. He said, "Let me go and let yourself go too." During the summer of my high school year, I almost drowned, and a passing police officer died trying to save me. At the memorial hall, I saw Jasper's pale face. My mom wept bitterly while embracing Jasper's mother, saying that from now on we would be family. Later, we indeed lived like a family. On those nights when Jasper's mother cried in her room, I would hug a pillow and quietly sleep beside her. She treated me well, trembling as she stroked my head. Jasper transferred to an elite school through my dad, attending the same school as me. He grew quieter by the day while I became his shadow, like a babysitter. Even when he looked at me with hostility, I forced myself to be kind to him. In our senior year, he became rebellious and often skipped classes to smoke on the rooftop. I climbed up to find him, only to see him kissing a girl. My heart raced and I wanted to flee, but he called me over with a mocking laugh. "You saw it all, didn't you?" He pulled the girl to me and said, "Meet her, my future wife." He looked at me with derision. "Her family is wealthy. My mom likes her a lot." I felt so embarrassed that even my toes curled, but I couldn't turn and leave. That night, he pushed open the door, leaning against the wall and looking down at me. "I don't want to transfer at all. Do you know why?" He said the girl he liked was named Emily, and that he planned to confess to her after graduation. "But my dad died. I can't do anything according to my wishes now." The hatred in his eyes later became my nightmare. I secretly went to see Emily, the girl in a school uniform who smiled with shallow dimples. I quickly signed my name, feeling as if a layer of dust had been wiped away from my heart. Jasper snatched the paper away and didn't glance at me again. He pulled Emily along as they walked out, saying, "See you in a month," and the voice in my heart grew clearer. "This is our last meeting in this lifetime." The door slammed shut, and after a while, the waiter pushed it open. "Should we serve the extra dishes now?" No one answered him. My mom, as if holding back for a long time, cried out loud. My dad gently patted her back, whispering comforting words. Jasper's mother sat there in a daze, as if she hadn't yet processed everything in front of her. As the person directly involved, I felt like a transparent figure. I slowly stood up and said, "No need to serve the food anymore. Let's settle the bill." I mechanically swiped my card, returned to the private room, and put on my coat, my fingers feeling numb. Am I calm? No, I was just too numb. I walked out, descended to the parking lot, and sat in my car. My eyes were still hot, but I held back the tears. What's there to cry about? I had long anticipated this day would come between him and me from the moment he held flowers and inexplicably proposed to me on my college graduation day, to when he dragged me to get the marriage certificate without giving me a choice. He walked so fast, even though everyone behind him advised him not to rush. There was a wedding to plan, guests to invite, and I needed to have a decent wedding dress. Yet he hastily threw out a line. "I'm afraid I'll regret it if I wait too long." At that moment, I mechanically signed the papers, dazed as I walked out. The next second, one of his words woke me up. He said, "Emily went abroad. Are you satisfied now?" The hatred in his words sliced through my heart like 1,000 blades, and I knew he hated me. After our marriage, he didn't even want to touch me. Every time I reached out to him, blushing and wanting to make contact, he jumped back as if shocked. "I've married you. What else do you want?" So in the years after we married, every time Jasper's mother tentatively asked if I had news, I never knew how to respond. Gradually, she stopped liking me. More than once, she sighed in front of me. "Our Jasper family is going to be extinct now." She and I could both breathe a sigh of relief. I quickly packed my things and headed to the airport. The destination was randomly chosen, and the sudden freedom left me disoriented. Since high school, it felt like my entire life revolved around Jasper. At first, it was guilt. Then it became heartache. Every time I saw him smoking alone on the rooftop, his gaze lost as he looked into the distance, my heart would ache. Loving him seemed to become my mission, but he never needed it. After that, I no longer had to force it. My parents called, their voices urgent and sorrowful. I could only reassure them, "I just want some time to myself. I'm really okay." As I sat in the cabin preparing to turn off my phone, I saw a message from Jasper. "The baby can't wait. I need to talk." The wedding photos with her first, I couldn't help but chuckle. Why did he still need to tell me about such things? Was he trying to remind me that my 5 years of marriage weren't worth his effort to plan a wedding? Perhaps he couldn't hear the congratulations in my earlier message, Not just congratulations for him but also for myself. I can finally stop loving him. Loving him was just too exhausting. After over a decade, I had exhausted all my feelings of guilt towards him. I thought for a moment and replied, "Okay, take more sets. I won't be going to the wedding." He showed he was typing but no words came out for a long time. The plane was about to take off. I turned off my phone and tossed it into my bag. As I closed my eyes, my body felt relaxed. No more Jasper in the future. No one would constantly remind me, "Sienna, without you, my life wouldn't be like this." A few hours later, we landed. The moment I opened my phone, several messages popped up, all from Jasper. The latest one was sent just seconds ago. "Sienna, it's midnight. Aren't you coming home? I told you about the curfew." I froze stunned. Even after the divorce, there was still a curfew. The curfew was set by him. After we got married, Jasper and I lived not far from my parents. Occasionally, when I had dinner and chatted at my parents' house, I'd lift my head and see it was past midnight. Jasper wouldn't call, but when I got home, the living room would be dark, only the embers of his cigarette glowing. "So you know how to come back. You're married. Don't you understand what that means?" I explained I was at my parents' house, and he only snorted in response. "From now on, keep the curfew. If it's late, don't come back." After that, I made sure to return home on time, sometimes racing against the clock. My parents thought our relationship was great, smiling from ear to ear. "Look how grown up you are. There's a curfew. We never had that rule when you were little." Now, standing at the airport, I felt a whirlwind of emotions looking at this curfew message. My finger hovered over the reply box, but I couldn't type a single word. It felt like I had wolfed down a big meal only to realize it was unseasoned. He had sent another message. "We agreed on this, didn't we?" The taxi we had arranged was parked by the side of the road. I thought for a moment and replied, "We are no longer us." I opened the car door and sat inside. He had already called. I didn't answer, but he persistently called again. When I finally answered, his voice came through hurried and anxious. "Sienna, where are you?" The driver in the front seat turned to ask me, "We're going to that hotel, right?" I nodded and suddenly Jasper on the other end of the line exploded. "What the hell are you doing going to a hotel at night? Who's that guy?" His voice was so loud that I instinctively held the phone away from my ear. I wanted to hand the phone to the driver to explain, but I was frozen. What was there to explain? A few hours ago, I had already signed the divorce papers with him. From now on, I could swear freely I wouldn't have to rack my brain over the meaning of his frown anymore. I had never felt so calm and justified in replying to him. "Jasper, I don't need to report to you anymore." The moment I hung up, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Turns out I could hang up on him whenever I felt sad, including blocking him. The seaside city was humid, but growing up in the north, I wasn't used to it. That sticky feeling wasn't exactly unpleasant. It was even a new experience. Every day I wandered aimlessly, strolling down various streets. I saw a cafe with a barista wanted sign and pushed the door open without a second thought. After a dozen minutes, I came out excited by my impulsive decision. I had obtained my barista certification a long time ago, but had nowhere to use it. My family was well off, while I had devoted all my attention to Jasper. They often felt indebted to him, and I was even more afraid of not taking care of him enough. But after over 10 years of being cautious, all I received were humiliations time and again. Jasper had once hoped to follow in his father's footsteps and become a police officer, but he couldn't resist his mother's tears. Later, he majored in finance in college and landed a job smoothly after graduation. My dad almost used all his connections for his success, but every time Jasper returned from a social event, he would glare at me coldly. "Your family knows how to make me lose face," he had asked me more than once. "Sienna, do you owe me or do I owe you?" In those unclear questions, I knew he was unwilling to love me. But just like the curfew, just like how he was now obsessively calling me from an unknown number, he neither loved nor let go. Why bother? While working at the cafe, I couldn't stop thinking of him. I probably was just the milk foam accidentally dripped onto a shot of espresso. Everything I lost was blamed on that one drop, even if it was merely by chance. Having realized this, I felt relieved and let go of myself. Emily seemed like a guillotine hanging over my heart. I had always feared when it would fall, but now everything had settled. From the moment they appeared together, I had already stopped loving him. The 30-day cooling-off period passed quickly, and I booked a flight home. As I just stepped out of the airport, a hand suddenly grabbed my arm. My suitcase was taken from my hand, nearly pulling me off balance. Jasper, without looking back, dragged me outside. "I thought you weren't coming back." How could that be? I had been counting down the days, looking forward to this moment more eagerly than before when I hoped for his acknowledgement. I tried to pull my hand back, only to find him tightening his grip. In the past, I would have endured it. Now I wouldn't. "It hurts, let go." He abruptly stopped, his grip loosening. I rubbed my wrist and walked ahead. "Don't worry, I won't change my mind." When I reached the car, he hurriedly walked over and opened the passenger door. I was taken aback, reaching for the back seat. He stood there for a while, then slammed the door shut and returned to the front seat. The car started, and he still wore a cold expression. "Sienna, do you need to be so deliberate? Are you angry but can't say it?" I couldn't understand why he suddenly lashed out. After pondering for a moment, I replied slowly, "Some girls mind others sitting in the passenger seat. I don't want Emily to misunderstand you." He continued to press me relentlessly. "Why did you block me? Called so many times. Why didn't you answer?" I thought he, like me, had unconsciously formed habits over these years, habitually questioning me, habitually expecting my unconditional cooperation. But I had completed my transformation during this past month. Even under his questioning, I felt not panic but annoyance. I didn't want to answer. "You kept calling, which annoyed me. Is that reason enough?" He suddenly slammed the brakes, nearly making me hit the seat back. I stared in shock as he turned his head. His expression so furious it seemed he would rip me apart at any moment. "Annoyed? Sienna, who do you think my dad died for? You think I'm annoyed?" All the moments that had exhausted me during our life together surged back, each voice echoing with his questions and mockery. But at that moment, I felt no ripples in my heart. I was calm, as if he no longer deserved any further explanation from me. "Drive. Once we get the certificate, you and I will have nothing to do with each other." He angrily slammed the steering wheel, causing an ear-piercing honk. After starting the car again, it seemed to take a long time before he calmed down. He asked where I had been this past month, then as if casually he said, "Aren't you eating? You've lost so much weight." I didn't want to answer his questions. From now on, I wouldn't need to share anything with him. I could only change the topic. "Have you and Emily taken wedding photos yet? If you haven't found a suitable photographer, I can recommend some for you." I thought he was going to ask me how I ended up by the seaside since I nearly drowned in high school. I hadn't dared to get near the water since. Even if my parents suggested a family trip, I would avoid all water activities. That near-death fear loomed over me like a nightmare. But this time I made the biggest attempt. In that seaside city, I walked on the shallow beach all afternoon and managed to overcome my inner fears to swim a bit. When I came ashore, my heart was racing, but I felt a joy of rebirth. It was as if I completely let go of my mental burdens. In that moment, submerged in the water, Jasper's sarcasm brought me back to reality. "What's next? Are you planning to book our wedding banquet and find a maternity center for us too?" Having arrived at the place, he parked the car, walked over and opened the door. Without any hesitation, he pulled me down. "Sienna, what's this? Trying to act magnanimous to make me feel guilty." His voice and actions filled me with a sense of weariness. Physically, I resisted his touch. I forcefully shook off his hand and jumped out of the car. "What do I have up my sleeve? All I want is to divorce you and never see you again. Are you satisfied?" "Now, Jasper, I've cleared what I owed you," but he looked up, his eyes red and fixated on me. "Cleared? What are you clearing? Can you even clear it?" I unknowingly chilled my face, stepping up the stairs without a hint of hesitation. "Let's end this. Let's finish it all quickly." But Jasper rushed up and tightly grabbed my wrist. "You talk." I gritted my teeth and forcefully walked inward. His hand tightened around my wrist, but it seemed to have lost its earlier strength. As we neared the door, he forcefully pushed me against the wall. "You haven't told me yet who's the man you've been with this past month." I had almost forgotten about that. It took me a moment to recall the taxi driver, who picked me up from the airport and took me to the hotel. He seemed to relax a bit, his hands on my shoulders loosening slightly. I felt a mix of anger and irony. No, we're getting divorced. Isn't it ridiculous that you're asking this? Or do you think it's only okay for you to have a child with someone else while married, but I can't? Perhaps I had hit a nerve, as he suddenly withdrew his hands. His gaze darkened as he stared at me. What qualifications do you have? Enough. I had had enough of being questioned and belittled by him. I moved away a bit, straightened my wrinkled clothes and looked up at him. My gaze was indifferent. You can scold me for being ungrateful, but I don't owe you anything, Jasper. For the past 10 years I've always felt sorry for you. I loved you as much as I could, but now my feelings for you have run dry. I no longer feared that he didn't love me, nor did I feel indebted anymore. I walked inward. I don't care who you love anymore. Anyone is fine as long as it's not me. We went in to get our marriage certificate, and Jasper had a dark expression the entire time. I even felt my steps become lighter as I walked out while answering my mom's call. Yeah, we've got it. Nothing's wrong. I'll be home for dinner. Jasper's voice drifted from behind. Are you so happy that it's no longer related to me? I stopped in my tracks, surprised that my joy had become so evident, but I didn't turn back. I continued walking straight ahead. I had never felt the wind so gentle. Even the cars in the morning rush hour seemed like sloths, somewhat cute. I only took 2 days off. At the dinner table, my mom kept serving me food. My dad looked as if he hadn't seen me in years. You've lost weight. You're tan. His words carried both concern and hesitance, knowing I was working at the cafe. My mom stopped serving. If you like, I can open one for you here. You can treat it as a hobby. I interrupted her. Mom, I'm doing well over there. She fell silent and lowered her head to wipe away her tears. In fact, I hadn't wanted to be too far from home, but this brief freedom felt refreshing in a place where I wouldn't have to worry about running into Jasper around the corner. It seemed I could finally find myself. I excitedly shared with them the experiences of this past month. When I got into it, I couldn't stop laughing. Suddenly, my dad said softly, I haven't seen you smile like that in a long time. How long had it been? Even I couldn't remember. I felt awkward laughing and didn't dare to cry. Your mother-in-law, Jasper's mom, has moved back in a hurry. My mom corrected herself, saying she refused to live in the house my parents bought not long after I left. She insisted on moving back to her previous home. Do you want to go see her? I looked at my parents' hopeful eyes and shook my head. No, let's not disturb her. I had left in such a rush that I realized there were many things I hadn't brought home. Putting down my chopsticks, I told my parents, you can take my things back. I couldn't bring myself to kick him out, nor did I want to see him returning to the seaside city. I now had an extra suitcase. It was stuffed with my parents' worries. A colleague helped me find an apartment, and I quickly checked out of the hotel and moved in. When I wasn't working, I watched movies or occasionally went to the beach. The water that once terrified me now rolled up to my feet, making me feel at ease. Unknown numbers continued to call me every day with a mix of messages. I didn't read a single one and changed my SIM card. I only told my parents, reminding them not to mention anything if Jasper asked. My mom hesitated. He might just want to check on you. It won't happen, Mom. Don't bother him and don't let him bother me again. I think he just hasn't adjusted to the fact that I no longer follow his every word. But Emily will help him adapt. His first love, once lost, has now been rekindled. All the pain will be soothed, including the sorrow from their youth. But 2 weeks later, the cafe door opened. I was making coffee with my head down. Welcome. A familiar voice came from close by. I'm here to check in. Startled, I looked up to meet Jasper's gaze, spilling water everywhere. I scrambled to clean it up and he burst out laughing. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? I watched him sit across from my boss, talking confidently. Confusion and unease stirred within me. It felt as though the peace I had finally found was suddenly shattered. I slipped outside to call my parents. Their voices were filled with guilt. He's been coming every day, they said. A huge question mark rose in my heart. What about Emily? He left his pregnant lover and came here for what? When I went back, he was already dressed in a server's uniform. The cafe was full of college students working part-time, and he looked out of place. I tried my best to avoid his gaze but couldn't escape his constant following. When the workday finally ended, I quickly changed clothes and left. Jasper dragged his suitcase as he followed me out. "Where are you staying?" I stopped walking. My frustration from the entire day erupted completely. "What do you want? What about your job? What are you doing here to humiliate me again?" He remained. "Ned, calm down. I quit. I came to see you," he said it so casually. I turned to leave, but he hurriedly followed me. "I didn't book a hotel. I'll stay with you for now." I had to stop again and coldly remind him. "Jasper, we're divorced and Emily needs you." He was silent, but whenever I walked, he followed closely behind. At the intersection, I completely lost my patience. "What exactly do you want?" His eyes were intense as he stared at me. "Are you afraid of me?" I shook my head. "Afraid of what? We have nothing to do with each other anymore, and your actions are making me uncomfortable." I even took out my phone. "Do you need me to call Emily to pick you up?" He just looked at me. "This is between us. Sienna is the reason you're so determined to draw a line with me, because of her." I almost thought I had heard him wrong. It was him who showed up with his pregnant first love at my birthday party. It was him who couldn't wait to take wedding photos. It was him who feared I would delay the divorce. Now that I've drawn the line, he comes to question me. I asked him, "What more do you need me to do?" He furrowed his brow, his head lowered. It was as if I was seeing that confused, lost Jasper from the rooftop again. After a long while, he finally spoke. "Emily and we never slept together. Sienna, I think I actually like you." His words surprised me even more than anything about Emily. I instinctively took 2 steps back when he reached out to me. I instinctively slapped his hand away. "Sienna, you," I quickly said, "don't like me. I don't want to be with you at all." His expression was a mix of emotions, his brow furrowing deeper. "Are you resenting me?" Resentment can only come from love, but what I felt rising within me was only panic. Panic at being dragged back into the past. I almost fled, desperately hailing a cab. Jasper kept calling, so I turned off my phone. In fact, during our divorce cooling-off period, I had already received a friend request from Emily. I declined, but she persistently tried again. After accepting, she called me. "Since you've let go, please don't look back. Let him go, okay?" She was never just a one-sided first love. She also loved Jasper. But as someone from a modest background, she couldn't resist the temptation. My father had sent her abroad for school, and to her, it was an irresistible golden opportunity. So she never said anything, but she couldn't forget how Jasper had waited outside her building the night before she left. "I met many people after that, but none of them were him," she said. "Sienna, you can't break us up twice. His father saved your life." Everyone kept reminding me, and now she was too. I calmly agreed with her. Even if she hadn't mentioned it, I would have done the same. "I'll never cross paths with him again in this life. I wish you both happiness." I meant it sincerely. Yet now he says he likes me, but I no longer need his love at all. Jasper's mother called me late at night. It felt like half a century had passed, and there was an awkwardness between us. She said, "Shingai went to find you. You two meet." I gave a small acknowledgement, and she seemed to sigh in relief. "I couldn't stop him. Ever since you left, he's been like a different person," she said. Jasper kept going to my parents' house to ask about my whereabouts. Even after being turned away, he wasn't upset. Instead, he would casually mention me during their meals. "Sienna, will she pick up your call?" Jasper's mother said that Jasper would always ask her this and use her phone to try to call me. When he found out I had blocked her too, he sat in the living room all night. "Sienna K. Shingai told me he didn't cheat." I didn't respond and hung up the phone. What once stood between me and Jasper was hatred and resistance. Now, the chasm between us is that I no longer love him. He can no longer control me. Emily arrived 2 days later, looking at me with sadness. "You promised me, Sienna." Jasper, who had come to find her, grabbed her coldly by the arm and started to pull her out. Her eyes widened, and she held tightly onto the door handle, refusing to let go. "You said you loved me, Jasper. How could you change?" Tears rolled down her face as she pointed at me, her hand trembling slightly. She killed your father. It was because of her that you couldn't become a police officer. You said you married her because you were heartbroken. Now that you're divorced, why are you still looking for her? Jasper's face darkened under her accusations, but I grew more and more calm. I'd heard these words countless times before. At first, they would sting, keeping me awake at night, but now I didn't feel even the slightest ripple. I turned and walked back to the counter. From a short distance away, Jasper tilted his head and looked at me. Emily, of all the things I said, these are the only ones you remember? Emily's face drained of color. Jasper continued. I said I don't think I actually hate her. Don't you remember that I said I couldn't sleep at all after she left? You don't remember that either? I also said that I realized I actually love her, but I showed it in the wrong way. He looked at Emily. Why don't you remember any of that? I didn't want to hear anymore. I stood up and went to the back to change clothes. After telling the manager I needed to leave, I headed to the beach. The wind blew through the car window as if it was carrying his words away with it. I made a call to Jasper's mother. Auntie, please come and take Jasper back. I don't want to see him. She was silent for a long time, her sobs restrained. I hesitated before saying, I don't owe him anything anymore, Auntie. It was only then that my parents found out those 5 years were actually a sexless marriage. My mom called. Why didn't you say anything? I chuckled. It's all in the past. Let's not bring him up anymore, okay? I took 3 days off, spending the time either sleeping or sitting by the beach. The rolling waves brought me peace, as though they were healing me. I no longer felt guilty for surviving. After all, it wasn't just Jasper whose life was rewritten. By the time I returned to the cafe I had already resigned. The manager said his mother had personally come to find him that day. They had a fierce argument outside and he even knelt down. Hearing about all of this felt distant and irrelevant, like gossip about strangers. The manager handed me a handwritten letter and said to give this to you. I looked at the yellowed envelope and shook my head. Throw it away. Let's pretend I've already read it. After that day, my life in the cafe returned to peace with the enthusiastic help of my colleagues. I even learned how to dive. When I surfaced and took photos, the smile on my face made my parents happy. My dad sent me a message. I was worried you'd settle down there for good. I didn't leave him worried for long. As summer came to an end, I quit and went back. This time I actually bought a cafe. It was at an intersection not far from my parents' house, named SE View. Walking into the shop and seeing the photo I had taken of the sea on the wall, it wasn't hard to guess why I named it that. But someone misunderstood. It had been a year since I last saw Jasper. He had cut his hair short and looked lean and refreshed. He walked in while I was chatting with the new barista we had hired. The barista was explaining the flavors and nuances of the beans used for the hand brew coffee. I was engrossed in the conversation and hadn't noticed when Jasper had come to stand beside me. The waiter came over and asked him, Sir, what would you like to drink? He cleared his throat softly. I'll have your signature SE View. I turned my head and met his deep dark eyes. He seemed to be trying hard to smile at me, but I had already looked away. I continued the conversation I had been having, laughing at a fun part. After finishing the barista's creation, I left the counter to head out. Jasper hastily stood up, knocking over a coffee cup, and brown liquid spilled all over the floor. I glanced at it briefly and kept walking. This time he stepped over the chair and grabbed my wrist. I looked down coldly, my gaze landing on his bony hand. He nervously let go. How could you come back without saying anything? I noticed he was still wearing our wedding ring on his ring finger. I bought that ring after we got married, afraid he wouldn't want to wear it. I left it in the drawer. In the end, he never wore it. As for mine, I took it off and threw it away on the day of the birthday party. He noticed where my gaze had landed, and his expression immediately turned desolate. Yours, it's been gone for a while, hasn't it? I nodded. I threw it away the day we signed the divorce papers. He pressed his lips together, his eyes drooping sadly. Sienna, I've been waiting for you all this time. I smiled at him. Jasper, it's over. His body tensed and his head drooped even lower. I used to stay at our home thinking you'd come back sooner or later, he said. Recently, I no longer dared to return there. It was filled with memories but also full of torment. He remembered all the times I fell asleep waiting for him on the couch. He used to gently carry me back to the bedroom. There were so many times I could feel your breath when I looked down. With just a little more I could have kissed you, but I never got closer, not even once. His head hung lower to his chest, his voice trembling with the sound of tears. I was afraid I really loved you, afraid that my hatred for you would disappear. He frantically raised his hand to wipe his tears, but they fell faster than he could wipe them away. I blamed you for all my misfortunes, thinking that way I could cover up all the chaos in my life. Until you left, I realized I was no longer who I once was. He looked at me with desperate eyes, pleading, "Can we go back to how we were before? Let me learn how to love you again." I shook my head. "No, I don't love you anymore. For the rest of my life, I just want us to be strangers." Jasper frequently came to the cafe, sitting there for entire afternoons. The staff, curious if he was a freelancer, quietly asked me, "Is he someone you know? He always orders the sea view coffee." I smiled without replying, and the staff scratched their heads. But today he didn't order any. I told him he had an evening date. I didn't correct this beautiful mistake, though in reality, I was just attending a gathering with my parents and their friends. As night fell and I was about to leave, Jasper stood up and followed me out. He suddenly said, "Emily's going abroad again." I was looking at a message from my parents and didn't really pay attention. She's been chasing me for the past year, but when the opportunity to further her studies came up, she agreed without hesitation. Surprised, I looked at him. "It's not because of my father, so you can rest easy this time." He chuckled, shaking his head. "I know. I just suddenly feel lonely. Those who love me and those I love have all left me." I didn't respond, only heading toward the parking lot. He softly asked from behind me, "What time will you be at the cafe tomorrow?" I pretended not to hear. In truth, that was the last time I saw him, and I didn't get the chance to tell him. The manager I had hired for the cafe had already taken over, and I wouldn't be returning. That night at the party, I accidentally broke a wine glass. Liquid spilled everywhere. At the same time, Jasper, who had left the cafe, had his heart fatally stabbed by a drunk and homeless man. He crawled for a long time until he took his last breath. People say the direction he crawled toward was that cafe called Seaview, even though a clinic was just in the opposite direction not far away. Jasper's perspective. I grew up wanting to be a police officer. That was before my father risked his life jumping into the water to save someone. But as I knelt at his funeral, fighting back tears amidst the mournful music, I was lost. This confusion lasted until that family appeared, kneeling in front of my father, saying they would take care of us. Sienna, the high school girl my father saved, her pale face and those clear bright eyes were more doll-like than Emily's. I hated her. LLY, and physically, why wasn't it her that died after dealing with my father's affairs? My mother couldn't resist their persistence and moved in with them. The house was large and everything was well taken care of, but Sienna became even more detestable to me. Her gaze would always cautiously follow me. I was merely testing whether the couch was real leather, scratching it a few times. She immediately asked nervously, "Don't like it? Should I ask my dad to change it to fabric?" I suspected she was showing off. That made my face go cold instantly. She was alive, so of course she could wear that hypocritical mask and condescend to us. I also suspected she was the one behind my transfer to a private high school. What's for my own good? I'm a boy. Do I need to be protected? Do I need to be looked after? It's just that being around her made their family look even more gracious and grateful. No one asked for my opinion. I couldn't even see Emily anymore. She handed me her yearbook with the eyes writing it for me in advance. I didn't take it, not knowing what to write. I had originally planned to confess to her at graduation, but now my instincts told me we wouldn't be together. Sienna was too annoying. I couldn't stand her at all. Even when I was doing homework, I found myself thinking about her far more than I thought about Emily. I couldn't help but wonder what else she wanted, what more she would do. She soon gave me an answer. When Emily came to say goodbye, she cried even harder than when I transferred schools. She said that going abroad to study was the luckiest thing that had ever happened to her in this life. How could I not know that it wasn't luck but someone manipulating things behind the scenes? Furious and agitated, I went to find Sienna. It wasn't until I reached her door that I remembered I had, for some reason, bought a bouquet of flowers for her graduation. I was clearly there to confront her, yet I was holding flowers in front of everyone. I proposed to her and dragged the panicked Sienna to get our marriage certificate. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. Everyone told me not to rush, that weddings needed preparation and guests needed to be informed, but I was only afraid. Afraid that I would regret it, and even more afraid that she would regret it. Afraid that she would suddenly wake up and realize how thorough my revenge on her had been. When her hand trembled as she signed the papers, I was even more nervous than she was. It wasn't until I held that marriage certificate in my hand that the chaos I'd felt for so long finally began to calm. This lifetime we would torment each other like this. I constantly reminded her that all my dissatisfaction in life was because of her. Watching her grow more silent, more submissive, and fearful in front of me, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She couldn't leave me no matter what I did. She wouldn't go because this was what she owed me. The news of Emily returning was something she specifically. Callie informed me that we had long lost contact, so when I saw her friend request, it took me a moment to recognize it. In that brief flash of thought, all I could think of was Sienna. I knew my mom had been passive-aggressively saying that she had ended the Jasper family line. But what my mom didn't know was that I had never touched Sienna. Loving her would betray the years of disgust I'd harbored toward her. I didn't want to be a betrayer, so I took Emily to humiliate her, even bringing divorce papers with me. The wording of those papers was something I'd found casually online. Would Sienna really sign them? She would cry at the birthday party, asking me why I was doing this to her. I imagined her pathetic expression and couldn't help but laugh. But to my surprise, she signed the papers calmly and even congratulated me. Congratulated me. Then she disappeared without a trace, and the emotions I had just felt quickly faded. How could she not care and yet still find a way to nurse her wounds? I was ready for her to call me late at night, crying and pouring her heart out, but it seemed I was the one who couldn't adjust. The day we signed the divorce papers, I opened the door to an overwhelming sense of loneliness that I hadn't felt in so long. At that moment, the panic in my heart grew infinitely large. I had to ask her about the door code, about coming home. The voice inside me was deafening. Sienna, it seems I care about you, but I knew I was supposed to hate you. That voice roared within me over and over. In the end, I chased after her, trying hard to tell her, but it was as if she couldn't hear me. She just looked at me coldly and said she didn't love me anymore. What she owed me, she wasn't going to pay back.